If we have alone the apparent animosities between nations, if we leave alone the apparent animosities against nations, between nations, then due to the political, geographic, or economic value of certain countries, other nations have tried to overpower them through their greed and might as a means of serving their own interests. Consequently, new alliances have begun to form. The main cause of all this is that man has forgotten his Creator and his teachings. The desire for material progress, world fame, and dignity has blinded the world. This is the reason why nobody pays heed to God's commands. And when there is no regard for God's commandments, then people only fulfill the rights due to others to the extent that their own interests are not affected. Their sympathy is an expression of mere lip service. The concrete steps that should have been taken are still not being implemented today, and the consequences will always be unpleasant. Despite our attempts to bury our heads in the sand, we are compelled to view horrific scenes that shake a person to the core. In the Second World War, both in Asia and in Europe, there were different countries in conflict with each other on a small scale. Ultimately, these culminated in a world war between two power blocs. The League of Nations proved powerless. Even today, we see in the Middle East, particularly in Israel, Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon, that animosities continue to increase. Likewise, actions are being taken against Iran, and Iran is reacting by making threats against Israel and the West. There are countries that are suffering from unrest because of their internal political and power struggles. For example, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq. On the other hand, due to the indulgence of superpowers, the Cold War continues in countries like Georgia and Poland, etc. These cannot be classified as religious conflicts. When civil war occurs, as in Afghanistan or Iraq, a power struggle ensues. Due to their inherent strategic value, some countries try to derive benefit and take advantage of their geographic position and exploit the natural resources of such countries. By using the local politicians or providing aid, they try to retain control of those countries. Be that as it may, the impression which continues to arise in those countries is that the promises made by the UN for granting the independence of each country have not been fulfilled. Due to the influence of superpowers and the UN, the sphere of unrest is expanding. We cannot simply close our eyes to this. The cause of Second World War was the existence of such unrest and mini-wars. Another matter which compels us to ponder and is a cause of concern is the present financial crisis and deep-seated recession. We observed that in 1929 there was a severe economic crisis. Today we are passing through a similar predicament. At that time, the depression started in America when its stock market crashed. The current crisis that has caused distress in the world also has its roots in the United States. At the recent World Economic Forum in Switzerland, both China and Russia openly held the United States responsible for the downturn. In 1929, every country of the world was engulfed in an economic crisis, and today's credit crunch is no different. International trade was severely affected then. The same is true today. Revenues from income tax levies and profits fell dramatically. The same can be seen now. In 1929, industry suffered a great setback, and that is being replicated today. It was recently reported in the news that the car industry had to reduce production by more than 50%. This is just one example. All the other industries face a similar predicament. Construction, and in particular housing construction, suffered, and this is the same now. Due to an inability to repay mortgages, houses are being repossessed by the lenders. In anticipation of future benefits, capitalists had heavily invested in real estate, but have found that their business have now collapsed. In the absence of the public's purchasing power, newly built houses in America, here in the UK, and in other countries are lying vacant. Construction projects have frozen midway. A similar scenario can be observed in other businesses. People have been made redundant in hundreds of thousands in every country and have become a burden on the treasury. In other words, the world is going through a very precarious time. Analysts suggest that the end of the 1929 depression was related to the start of the Second World War. At that time, some fanned the flames of their rivalries to their own vested interests. Particularly in such circumstances, money begins to accumulate in a few hands, individually or amongst a certain class where money always flows. Such people preserve their interests and at the same time provide capital to the governments, who consequently become indebted to them. This is no secret.